Infinite Frontier Secret Files issue 1. This was released digitally. The final part of the digital version came out this week as well, which was number 6. This is 6 12-ish page stories. And it's got a bit of a framing device as a concept to this, which is that Bones is listening to tapes that Chase has compiled on various notable characters in Infinite Frontier, and he's listening to these tapes, and that's kind of the I mean, as he's hearing the tapes, we're seeing something of some of these characters. So we get one about Roy, we get one about President Superman from Earth 23, we get Jade Obsidian, which was one of the more, I thought, interesting ones out of the batch.
Yeah.
So we'll work through these and we'll see what they all think. What's so funny to me is that I kind of read the first couple and went, I don't know how important these feel. They feel just more like refreshers on who these characters are. But by the time we got to the end, I was like, oh no, those last couple were actually felt like they might have been teasing some things that are...
Yeah, 4 and 5, especially the Bones one with Boomerang and then Psycho Pirate, definitely felt more... These are, no, I wouldn't say integral, but if you read these, you'll have a better...
It's a nice tease, because obviously we saw Psycho Pirate in issue 1 of Infinite Frontier.
Right.
And where the Psycho Pirate story at the end of this leaves off, it feels like, oh, that's a nice little sort of like, oh, that led into that.
But
so
up to this point, so in order, you have the Calvin Ellis, Superman of Earth 23, then you have Roy Harper, then you have Jaden Obsidian, the Totality, Bones and Boomerang, and Psycho Pirate.
Yeah.
I would almost argue the first 4 are a little bit just superfluous. Like, they're fine stories. I'm not upset that I read them.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that to an extent, although I think the one that stands out is the Jade Obsidian one. I think partly because obviously they've not been around for a long time, but I think the main thing is because Jade's effectively working through this trauma of like being back, and she's scared that the star heart might like not work one day.
Right, but then it also, and we'll get there, kind of diverges into something with the character that shows up. And it's a little bit weird, just like...
It's a little bit weird,
it just
but I think...
focus more on her.
But I think learning where she is right now actually feel like new stuff, because we've seen Obsidian in a few of these stories, but Jade's been a little more absent. And I think that felt more... Because I think Roy's story in the second one, his just kind of feels like Roy's around, he's alive, and will he be good? Will he go down a dark path again? Because Roy can do that from time to time. He does some fighting. We're reminded he's a good person, and that's it. Like, that's the whole thing.
No, he likes to hang out in diners and fight truckers. That's all I learned in that issue.
Yeah, there was nothing like important about it on its own. I think I appreciated the first one as someone who's not read as much of the President Superman stuff. I think this was a nice little taste of it. If you've not read much of this character, this will show you who he is, how he operates in his world as both being president and being Superman. And it's like, okay, all right. And I got to the end of this and went, oh, well, I liked having that one because I didn't necessarily had as much experience with them. But are all of these going to just be like, here's who this character is? Now, it turned out they weren't, because the back half of them are all different. The back half of them aren't that at all.
No. But yeah, like you said, it's nice having a Calvin Ellis story that you can point to that's not multiversity.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's really the only place he's popped up. And there might have been some stuff in Morrison's Action Comics. There might have been an issue with him.
I mean, he's popped up for cameos a lot, but that's the main story that he comes from.
Just to basically have a day in a life and see how he balances being Superman of his world and the president, I thought was pretty funny. And he has a Helix that is almost like his assistant in the White House, which I thought was fun. That's managing his time through the day. And then you find out he ends up going to basically a sensory deprivation room where he, with all the time that he has extra from the day to spend away from the sounds and sights and smells of the world, just to reset his head. And I really like that character beat there.
Yeah, I concur. And the art in that first one's pretty solid as well, I think.
It's Brandon Thomas, who I feel like that's a name. All of these writers that are working with Williamson, I feel these are the next, quiver of writers DC is going to be going to.
I will say, though, I did think the two Brandon Thomas, which is this and the Totality, I I thought
Very
those were the two wordy ones where I felt like they were a bit too stacked in the word department.
And Brandon Thomas also did the Mr. Miracle that we skipped issue 2 on. I think that I'm pretty sure that's him.
So that's a trend then. What you saying?
Yeah. So that's just his style, I feel. But yeah, and then Stephanie Phillips did the Roy story, right?
Yeah, which I actually thought was fairly well written. It just didn't feel like it offered that much.
No, it felt like one of these, digital first type stories. That, like you said earlier, if this was in an anthology, this would just be the Roy, Infinite Frontier story. But for this to be, issue 2 and whatnot, and the spotlight, it was just, again, like you said, well written. But all I learned from this is Roy Harper, now that he's back, and this hit before Infinite, right? Because these came out weekly originally. This is before we realized that there's something more going on.
Yeah, so only the last couple would have been after issue 1 came out, I think.
Right.
Yeah, the third story it's not surprising because they basically kind of the first 3 of them. This is the same teams on the next 3, or at least the writers are anyway. But and I don't think it's a surprise because Joshua Williamson co-plotted all of the stories with the writers, and then they went off and wrote the scripts. And I don't think it's a surprise that story number 3 and 6 and this are the two best ones because they're both Dan Waters and Joshua Williamson, I think. So, well, I think they're both the best. I think not. I mean, I know that those creators.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
but yeah, and Stephen Byrne art on the Jade and Obsidian, which is Jade, just because he works with those soft lines so well that the color seemingly pops on Jade so well, and then the lack of color on Obsidian, it just
really well done.
Just perfect match.
Obviously walking into the Shadowlands, and I think the idea of the story being that she's scared that she doesn't want to go flying because she's worried that the Starheart might one day stop keeping her up in the air and she might fall to her death, basically. And, so that's the basic gist of the idea, and the point of the story is that like the world might end tomorrow, it might end in a week, it might end in a month, a year, it might not end for another 10 million years. You don't know, so there's no point in worrying about it. There's no point in holding back. So and it has an ending, it has an arc, because at the end of the story she does take off and flies. So I think this is one of the better ones, is because it does have a full arc for the character, and because the character who's not been around much, it gives us a nice sense of where she is right now. It gives us a nice sense of this does serve as a really good introduction to these two characters, I think. You do have the weird thing with the villain who's going to sing the song that's going to kill the planet, and basically Todd convinces her to go into the Shadowlands and sing in that instead.
Right.
And as she puts it, it'll take her between 20 minutes and 20 million years to finish, destroying the Shadowlands, and that just ties into the whole theme of the story, which is, it could be today, it could be, ages from now.
Yeah, it's Jade overcoming fear, right? Very Green Lantern-y take on it. But no, so I did look up Chroma, and Chroma goes back to the Infinity Inc. days where Jade and Obsidian started. Oh,
I had no doubt this was a pull. Yeah. I didn't think this was a new character.
So to see that, and to see that it didn't affect Obsidian back then, so that's why he's able to figure it out. But then,
I mean, hell, even when she shows up, they reference having seen her before. She's like, I knew I wasn't going to come back to Earth, but then Earth got reborn, so it's different. The frequencies are different. Well, the vibe is different.
And just with Jenny having that, like, I was gone, but now I'm back, and just all that uneasiness to go along with Chroma saying that with the vibrational frequencies, that's almost kind of the first hint of where we're going to go in 5 and 6, right? Like, there's that tease a little there. But yeah, no, it was the Stephen Byrne art too. So far, this was the one where the art, I was just like, oh man.
This was the thing perfect. Where, because I was reading these digitally, so I had the 6 individual things, right? So I read the first 2, I took a break, and I was like, those were fine, but I wasn't necessarily in love with them. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about not reading the rest, but I was sort of thinking like, if the next one feels like this, maybe I won't necessarily feel compelled to read them all. I can come in and just talk about the ones I read. But then I read this and went, oh wait, you know what? If they can be like this, then I'm in for I'm in for the whole batch.
I was going to tell you to make sure you read at least 5 because I know how much you love Director Bones, and he's kind of front and center in that one.
Yeah, because 5 changes things up, and it becomes a Bones like in the DEO itself, and it's they've captured Boomerang. Actually, no, I was skipping over 4 here. Let's do 4 first.
I was going to say 4. Which was the one where he was looking for his whiskey, and he kept yelling for Mildred.
I think that was 4.
Okay.
Because I want to say that was before he had the whole focus where he's running around.
Yeah, okay. I love that background spot. That as he's listening to the tapes, he's emptied his flask, and he needs more, and he yells for Mildred to, hey, bring me the expensive stuff. As this, I don't want to say crisis because that means completely different with the totality. As this thing is going on with 2 sets of the totality.
Do you know? Do you know what's so funny about the setup that each of these starts with Bones listening to a tape and that like sets it into the stories? Is I kind of it gave me this weird like he's kind of like a crypt keeper, but then you have the whole shadowy government kind of vibe to it as well. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take an anthology version of this where it's just Bones like sort of like saying, oh, these are all the secret files from all the cases of the multiverse, and just like tell different stories.
Yeah. He's very entertaining too.
I'll do
his commentary on these. But yeah, so this you have the totality, who's Martian Manhunter, Talia, Mr. Terrific, Hot Girl,
and
Lex, and Vandal Savage.
Yeah, basically they do an experiment, and them and also the totality of the same batch of characters from Earth 23 run into each other. A fight breaks out, and it's kind of about the Jean of Earth 23 wanting to see if our Jean can actually trust his team. So he pretends to be their Jean in the psychic like meeting room, and tries to like say as an imposter here, one of you have been like overtaken by the Earth 23 version, and ultimately they one by one kind of rule each other out, and then say it has to be Jean, it has to be him. And this proves to him that even though you're a bunch of different characters and some of you are villains, you all immediately went to work together. So therefore, cool.
You're trustworthy.
Yeah.
My favorite part in this was Lex going, "I'm here to prove that Mr. Terrific's not smarter than me," and the fact that rung the bell for Martian Manhunter. Right? I was like, okay, yep, that checks out. That's really Lex. I just love Petty Lex.
Oh sure, I have no complaint. I mean, I like this. I thought it was a little bit like almost like too much to stuff in, because I got a little bit confused a little early on with the multiple versions, and then the first time they went into the like the mind meeting room.
Well, you had to remember that from Snyder's Justice League that was their thing, right? That Martian Manhunter would bring them all in there. But yeah, I also love that. I want more of why Vandal Savage of Earth 23 and Calvin Ellis hate each other so much. Because I did like that little thing too.
Yeah, because he shows up and they all like the Martian Manhunters like make everyone invisible to him, but he says that he can still smell them.
Yeah, that you can't hide certain things even from him. So yeah. But no, yeah, it was good. But you're right, it was wordy. I know.
Lex wears the same cologne in both worlds. It was also one of the lines.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was enjoyable. Do you know what I think it is? I think this one would have been perfectly fine had it been a regular 20-page comic. I think it being shrunken into the 12 or 13 pages was maybe just a little bit too packed.
Yeah.
But certainly not bad. And then the 5th story, which is the Boomerang Bones, where Boomerang, because of what happened to him in Death Metal, where he became kind of this monster, he still has that in him, and Bones realizes that he still has this dark energy in him, so he traps him, triggers this. Boomerang's not happy about being taken in or anything, obviously, and I think my favorite part of all this is one, Bones running away scared and shouting for Mildred's really funny, but I love that Boomerang in like his Hulk form rips off like a bone sticking out and tries to use it as a boomerang. I
love that.
Wonderful.
And then Bones goes, "Mildred, he's throwing his bones at me." That made me laugh so hard. And this is where I'm with Stephanie Phillips. I would love to read more of her work,
Sure.
but right now she's doing Harley with Riley Rosmo art, and I can't
Of course, yes.
do it. But you're talking about the Bones anthology. I feel like her voice for Bones really is great here. But yeah, and just that whole dark energy and Boomerang not remembering that he died. And so Bones asking him these questions, like, I don't know what you're going on with, man. But yeah, not me. Not this Boomerang, which I also love that famously, up until Rebirth, he was dead, right? Killed in Identity Crisis. So there's some, double stuff going on here.
Yeah, and the story ends with him trapping Boomerang in sort of a big sort of trapped electrical shock room so that he can take him down. So they have Boomerang held captive, and the tape that we're hearing throughout this notably is talking about Bones, and it is still Bones listening to it at the end. So the idea is that Chase has made a tape about Bones, and he's like, I need a drink.
and how weird Bones is, because he's never, like, even though he was a bad guy, right? He's always kind of been on the side of order, and that his motivations were different because of such the weird being that he is. So, which again, I like that perspective on Bones. That he's perfect. He's perfect to be a bureaucrat because he plays his own side.
Yeah. So, yeah, somewhat enjoyable. It definitely feels like it picks up. I think 3, 5, and 6 are the ones that really stuck out to me as being really worth reading, and then the other ones are fine. To varying degrees.
I was shocked how much I enjoyed issue 5. That was for sure.
It's just one of those things where you have to get through just a couple of okay first parts, and then you kind of get into some of the more meaty stuff.
Yeah, when I messaged you to start, and you said you were finishing these, and you told me which one you were on. Had you not been on 6, I would have said make sure you read 5, because I really think you'd dig that one.
Yeah. No, I was on the last one anyway. I was. Yeah. Admittedly, I was running a little bit late, so I didn't get a time to do a Patreon book, which means you're going to get 2 of those next week. So, look forward to that. But yeah, so the last one, of course, is Bones. He's looking at a photo of Psycho Pirate, and he's like, "Oh, I hate this guy." Right? And he tries to play the tape, and it's just like screaming, right?
Yeah.
And it cuts to away. So instead of getting like a tape playing, like it's still bookends. Like Bones trying to listen to this tape bookends the story. But when we come back to him later, he just sort of like takes the headphones off because it just sounds horrible. And he's like, oh, okay, I need to go and bring in Chase, which actually leads us into the scene that he had with her in issue 1. So that's kind of neat. But the story's about this character who's looking for what turns out to be Psycho Pirate. And the Lonely Man is what he keeps referring to him as, the narration. And Psycho Pirate's got his mask on the table. He finds him in this building, and he puts the mask on this guy. And the idea is that Psycho Pirate's going to test them with 3 questions, and if he gets them right, he'll be allowed to, I don't know, ascend and be with them, or
so he'll share the power of the Medusa mask, which is why he's the Lonely Man, because no one has ever been able to pass the 3-question test. Hence why he's the Lonely Man. And this guy makes a push. And
he tries
this
his
is
best.
definitely the most philosophical comic issue I've read in a while. It was reminding me of, I was getting that vibe because it's almost being told in like the first person from Psycho Pirate as you're reading the book. You know what I mean? Like, but the guy comes close because one of, it's like one of the questions.
Question. Well, I've got them in front of me.
First question.
Question 1 is, what can we know? And the guy's answer is basically, well, we can only know what our senses are willing to let us know, as is ultimately the answer. And he's like, okay, good answer. All right, that's not bad. Second question is, what is real? Is the second question. And then the guy says, well, our emotions are real. Like, the sources of the emotions can be fake, they can be fabricated, but the emotions themselves, if we're bored, we're just bored.
We are bored.
Yeah.
Right. We're furious. We're furious.
Yeah. And he's like, all right, okay, not bad. All right, you got 2 out of 3. So that's all right. But then the third question, if I just find it here, is who are you? And he tries to. He says, "I'm only a man. I'm a fry cook. I'm this. I'm that." And basically, this is the one that isn't like the answer to. He says, "Oh, you're just a poser. So it's all posture. You don't really know what you're talking about." And Psycho Pirate basically lets the mask kill him, and it's a great page actually because all of these pages with this guy have all been just against just a table and two chairs in a completely dark black room, and then this final page where the guy dies, the background goes away, it's all white, and we just see like the mask has this sort of like scared expression on it, and then the guy just keels over and dies. But it's like all, instead of being in panels, because up until now it's all been very rigid six square panels, whereas you get to this page and it's all overlapping, and the guy's falling over. Everything's like a Dutch angle. It feels like just complete chaos, and like his head's spinning kind of thing. So the art's really good there, and what I'm saying, I guess.
Right. And there's talk of the Psycho Pirate has always survived. He's almost outside of the multiverse. That he's almost a unique being, as that it's only him that's there.
Yes, but that's when the narration starts to come back in, and Psycho Pirate hears it, and he says, like, "Who is that? Who is speaking?" And he's still in the plain white. He's picking up the mask, and he's saying, "Who is that? Who's somehow made it to the other side of everything? Who else could be here?" And the narration says, "You really think you are outside of everything? That there is nothing beyond in your enlightened perspective?" And as he's that last panel at the bottom of that page, like there's sort of there's just the edges of the white panel, because it's the white background still, but just the edges of like there's sort of blacks coming in as if the camera's pulling back. And then the next page is he's in a white circle with black around it. Then the middle page, you get that that's a period or a full stop at the end of a sentence, and you get the last letter, and then the panel at the bottom of that page is just the text that says "Darkseid is," which. This is the first time that this has properly been used, I think, since Mr. Miracle. Like, in terms of like a mainstream continuity comic that's used it as a big... Like, I think there's maybe been like a joke that's referred to or something. Or there's been like a throwaway line. But this is the first time it's been used as a dramatic beat for Darkseid in a main DC comic since Mr. Miracle. I think. And
once the dialogue or the narration boxes started getting that more wild kind of lettering, I could kind of feel it. Now, granted, we kind of know what's going on with Darkseid because we'd read Infinite Frontier 1. But when you got to that and it all came together with the Darkseid is, you're like, oh, man, they got me good on this one.
Yeah, this is the one that feels important. This is the one, if nothing else feels important in this batch of 6 stories, this is the one that feels the most pertinent.
Like, I feel like if they don't collect all of these, right? I mean, they already did in the 6th issue. That's what I picked them up on. This one definitely will be in the trade for Infinite Frontier. Most of them probably will be, all of them, but let's say weird happenstance. This one is definitely almost like Infinite Frontier.
It probably
5.
None of them will probably be in the first trade, but when they do a more like complete edition, that's when they'll probably throw them all in.
Sure.
Maybe an omnibus or whatever, I don't know. So. And Darkseid says he's on Earth Omega, and of course that's where obviously this new Omega planet is the one that he's on. Of course it is. It says, at the end of all things there is a spirit, blah blah blah. At the end of all things there is Darkseid. Will you join me? Would you want me to remake you so that you may not be alone? And of course we saw Psycho Pirate with a completely new look. So when he says yes, seriously, of course he said yes, because we already saw him looking different. And he says, then it is done. And then it cuts back to Bones, and he takes off the headphones, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go get Chase. So this last story sets up Psycho Pirate, and it sets up, to an extent, the Bones going to meet Chase.
And again, the voice for, that Dan Waters uses here for him, he goes, oh, how I hate you, Psycho Pirate. So very, very much. Like, it's just a good little tag.
Yeah. Because I like the idea that he tried to play this tape and all he got was unfiltered emotions off of wherever it came from.
Yeah. So here's a theory. If this is the first time we've seen Darkseid is, right, and that since Mr. Miracle, and we know how that ended with the death of Darkseid via Veggie Tray, what if this Darkseid is that Darkseid from Mr. Miracle? Huh?
That sounds very fan fictiony to me.
I don't know.
That sounds a little hokey.
We'll see where it goes.
I'm not gonna say, like, I think it could work. I have to pull it off in the right way, but I will say that upon hearing that, it sounds a bit hokey, and I hope you're wrong.
We'll see. I mean, you always hope I'm wrong, you know?
That's not true.
Yeah.
I always hope Connor's wrong. There's a difference.
Well, that's, you know. But yeah, so, no, this was a very good issue.
Yes. Yeah, the last story was really good. I think the Jade and Obsidian one was really good too, and I think the Boomerang one was a lot of fun with Bones. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd say it's not essential, but a couple of them are really good, and the last one feels definitely very close to being a nice little lead into the first issue. So I would say it's a nice companion if you want to get a bit more of Infinite Frontier right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much it. We practically skipped over the Roy story because there wasn't really much to say about it. He's in a bar fight.
He's in a bar fight, and the lady helps him out, but reminds him of someone that he once knew. And it's assumed that he means Cheshire. So, but yeah, he gets mad and he gets into bar fights. What's not to love about Roy Harper?
I mean, that's not what I like about Roy Harper. That's your mentality. So that's why you like Guy Gardner. It's that warped way of thinking about. Okay, what are you rating Infinite Frontier Secret Files issue 1?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5, but like you said, 4 and 5 and even 3 are doing a lot of the heavy lifting there.
Not 6.
I think that's what I meant. I meant 5, 3, 5, and 6.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, I'll give it a 7. I think it's an enjoyable enough. I think in a week 5 especially, it was a fine thing to sort of fill out the week with.